everyone, so today's video is going to be a tutorial on how I crochet the distressed, I don't even know, top on my TikTok. Everyone was asking for tutorials, so here it is. I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to upload a video. It's just been a hectic few weeks, so I'm back now. I will be trying to post more. I'm back in Malaysia as well, so I should have more time to film. So yeah, get ready for a lot of summer crochet things. Since I am back in Malaysia, you know I'm going to be using Spotlight yarn. So the yarn that I use for this top is this Moda Vera Couche cotton blend. It's actually so soft. I really like it, so I might be using this more often. It's definitely a worsted weight yarn. It's a bit thicker than a DK, and I used a 5mm hook. So just some info about this top. It is made in 4 separate pieces. So I made the front, the back, and then 2 sleeves. So I have one of my front pieces here, and then I have one of the sleeves still attached to the ball of yarn. But this is my sleeve, so we'll be making 2 pieces of each, both identical, and I will show you how to make the pieces. But the most difficult thing I'd say about this top is actually stitching everything together. It just takes a long time, but in general this top is really easy. This stitch is really easy, and it works up pretty quick because half of it isn't even crochet. So I say this is a pretty beginner level tutorial. So yeah, I'll show you how to make the pieces. Okay, so I'm recording this after I finished crocheting all of the pieces, but I just realized that when I was filming, I actually never showed the finished pieces against my body, so you can just see roughly how big the pieces are. But this is my front piece, and then when I put it against myself, it comes from one shoulder to the other. When I come to sew this together, we will add an extra panel of the distressed bit to the side. So if your piece is a little bit on the tight side, it's fine, because we'll add an extra panel on each side, so it will be a bit bigger than your finished pieces. And then same for the sleeve. So my sleeve, this is how wide it is, and then when I put it against the top of my shoulder, so where the front piece ends, when I hold it like that, it comes just to above my wrist. And when I hold it, when I close it like this, it is actually a bit tight, but it's fine because we will add an extra portion of this under here, so it will be a little bit bigger. So those are what my pieces look like against me. So if you do want to do yours similar to fit you, then that's what mine looks like. I just realized that I never actually showed that, so here it is. And then now we'll be going to the crochet bit. Okay, so first I'm going to show you how I made the front/back piece. They're both identical, so you just need to make 2 of these pieces. So for mine, I did 6 groups of blocked double crochets, and then 5 groups of the distressed bits. So I will show you how I made this, but the great thing about this is that you can customize this to be whatever size you want. So if you want this section to be bigger, just do more chains, and then if you want these little distressed sections to be bigger, then you just need to pull out a longer chain. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so to start this piece, I'm going to make a slip knot. And then for these sections here, I did 6 double crochets. So you can do more or less depending on how thick you want these sections to be. But I did 6 double crochets, so I'm going to chain 6 to start. So I have 6 chains here, and now I'm going to make this long distressed section. So to do that, I'm just going to pull out a really long chain. So I'm going to pull this out, and how I measure these sections for me is I just fold them back to see whether they're the same length as my chain 6, because I just kind of made them the same thickness as these sections here. So I just use my chain to measure how long I need to pull this out. So once I've pulled it out the right length, I'm just going to pull through to complete the chain. So there's the distress section there, and then I'm going to go on to the next section of the chain 6s. So after this, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these really long chains are the distress sections. They don't count as chains in these blocked sections here. So I have 6 chains, and then I have this one really long pulled out chain, and then I have another 6 chains here. And then I'm going to do another distressed chain. So I'm going to pull out a long chain, and then I'm just going to fold it back to measure it to see whether I've pulled it out the right length. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to complete the chain by pulling through a loop, and then I'm going to do another 6 chains. Like that. So this is what it should look like, the chain 6 sections, and then one really long chain, and then another chain 6 section, and then the really long chain. And so since I have 6 groups of these double crochets here, I'm just going to repeat this until I have 6 sections of the 6 chains. So I'll show you one more time how I do the really long chain. So I just pull out the loop, and then you don't have to do this, but I fold it back just to measure to see whether I've pulled out the right length. And then once I've made sure I have, then I just finish the chain by pulling through, and there's your really long chain. And then another 6, just like that. So I'm going to repeat this until I have 6 groups of the chain 6s. Okay, so I finished doing the starting chain, so I have 6 groups of the 6 chains and then 5 of the really long distress chains. So to start the first row, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to skip the next 2 chains and put a double crochet straight into that 3rd chain there. And the chain 2 will count as a double crochet. So now I have 2 double crochets here, including the chain 2. And then I'm going to do 4 more double crochets so that I have 6 here in total. Okay, so I have 6 double crochets here in total, and now I'm going to do the next distressed portion. So to do that, I'm just going to pull out a loop like this. And then if you want, you can pull it back to measure it to see whether you've pulled out the right length. I've done this so many times, I kind of know how long to pull it. But if you want, you can just do this to measure it. And then I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to find the first chain of the next chain 6. So the first chain here, and I'm going to insert my hook into that chain. And then I'm just going to do a double crochet like normal. So yarn over, pull through. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. And then I'm going to pull through the first 2, and then I'm going to pull through the last 2. Like that, and that makes the distress section there. It might be a bit tricky at first, but you do eventually get used to it. This top loop just will be a bit annoying to try and crochet with. But then once I've done that first double crochet, that counts as the first double crochet of this chain 6 here. So then I'm going to do 5 more double crochets so that I have 6 in total. Obviously, if you've done your chains a different width, then you'll just want to do as many double crochets as you chained. Now that I have my 6 double crochets here, I'm just going to repeat what we did for this section. So I'm just going to pull out a really big loop, and then if you want, you can measure it, and then once you have the right length, just yarn over, and then find the first chain of that chain 6, and then insert your hook, yarn over and pull through a loop, and then you have 3 loops here, yarn over and pull through the first 2, and then yarn over and pull through the second 2, like that. And then another 5 double crochets, and just keep repeating this all the way till the end of the row. A little tip for when you're doing this long chain here is that when you pull your loop and then yarn over, you'll want to hold these 2 pieces here with your thumb or something, just so that when you yarn over, you don't accidentally pull it tight and then making it shorter. So once you've pulled through your loop and yarned over, you'll want to just hold this with your thumb or something, and then find the next chain. I'm still holding it here, and then insert my hook, pull through a loop, and then pull through the first 2, and then pull through the second 2. It just makes sure that this section doesn't get pulled too tight. Otherwise, if it does, your sections can start to get smaller and smaller. Which is fine if you want that, but if you want yours to be straight, then you'll obviously want to make sure that you don't accidentally pull on these sections. So I'm just going to keep repeating this until I get to the end of the row, and then I will show you how to do the second row. So this is my first row completed. I've done my final 6 double crochets here. So to start the second row, I'm going to chain 2, and then turn the work, and this will count as the first double crochet. So I'm going to skip that very first double crochet there, and then I'm going to double crochet straight into the second one. And then 4 more double crochets so that I have 6 in total. So I've done the first 5 double crochets, including the chain 2, and now for the 6th double crochet, instead of just inserting my hook through this top section here, I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm also going to insert my hook. If I show you here, this is the top of the double crochet technically. I'm also going to insert my hook through one of these loops here, just to help anchor my double crochet, because if I just put my hook through these 2 loops like this, it doesn't stick with the rest of the double crochets and it kind of goes off to the side and it just doesn't look very together. So what I do is I yarn over and then I put my hook through both of these 2 loops, and then underneath there's like a little V shape there. I hope you can see that. I just insert my hook through one of those stitches. It doesn't really matter because you can't really see it. You can go through both or just go through one. I go through one because I'm lazy, and then I do my double crochet as normal, and that way that anchors the stitch to the double crochet from below so that your stitch isn't moving off to the side. So once I've done that, I will pull up my loop again and then yarn over and then insert my hook into the first double crochet here, just in the top of the stitch like normal, and then do a double crochet as you would normally do. Like that. And then I'm going to do my next 5 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then for the last one I'll show you again. I yarn over, I insert my hook through these top 2 loops here, and then I find the little V stitch here, and then I insert my hook through one of those strands, I don't know what you call it, but through one of those, and then I do my double crochet like normal, and as you can see, it anchors my stitch. So that's what you do for the whole pattern basically. Each row is exactly the same, but I will show you one more time. I pull through my loop here, yarn over, and then insert my hook into that first double crochet and do a double crochet like normal. And then my next 5 double crochets like that, and then I will yarn over, insert my hook through these the top of this stitch here, and then I will also find that little V stitch underneath and insert my hook through one of these here. It doesn't really matter exactly where you put that stitch, just as long as it anchors it if you want it to, so it doesn't move around. And that is pretty much it. I will repeat this until the end of the row and for the rest of the rows. For this row, for this piece, I did 27 rows. So I'm just going to keep repeating what I'm doing here for all of the rows. So I will do my long chain and then double crochets, and then when I reach the end I will just chain 2 and then repeat the whole thing again for another 25 rows. So yeah, when I get back to the top I will show you how to do the sleeve. If you want to skip ahead, the sleeve is the exact same, except for the sleeve I only did 4 sections of the double crochets. So I chained 6 and then did a long chain, then chained 6, did a long chain. I only did that for 4 groups of the chain 6s, if that makes sense. So here I have my first sleeve piece. It is the exact same as the front. I just did 4 groups of the 6 double crochets instead of 6. So I will show you once again how to do that in case you couldn't understand it from the first clip. So to start, I'm going to make a slip knot, and then I'm going to chain 6. And then once I do that, I'm going to pull out a long chain, pull it back to measure it, and then once I made sure it's long enough, I'm going to finish the chain by just pulling through the loop, and then I'm going to chain another 6 like that, and then I'm going to pull out another long chain and then pull it back just to make sure it's just the correct length, and then finish the chain by pulling through the loop, and then another 6 chains. And then the last long chain, I'm just going to pull it out, measure it, and then finish the chain by pulling through the loop, and then another 6 chains. This is my starting chain. So to start the first row, it's the exact same as the other piece. I'm just going to chain 1, skip the next 2 chains, and then double crochet straight into the 3rd chain here. now I have 2 double crochets. I'm going to do 4 more till I reach this last chain here, and then I'm going to do the next distress section. So now that I've done my 6 double crochets, I'm just going to pull out a long loop and then yarn over and then insert my hook into the first chain here, and then do my double crochet as normal. So pull through the first 2 loops and then pull through the last 2. That, and then I'm going to do 5 more double crochets. Once I've done my 6 double crochets, I'm going to pull out a loop, yarn over, and then insert my hook into the first chain, and then do my double crochet again as normal. So I'll just repeat this for the last group of chain 6s, and then I'll show you how to start the second row again. But as I said, it's the exact same as the first piece. So if you got it from the first piece, then you don't really have to watch this. So I finished my first row of the double crochets, and to start the second row, I'm going to chain 2 and turn my work, and then I'm going to skip that first double crochet because the chain 2 counts as a double crochet, and then I'm going to double crochet straight into the second one here. And then I'm going to keep doing double crochets until I reach the 6th one. And then again, for the final one, I'm going to anchor it to this stitch here by yarning over, inserting my hook through both of these loops here, and then finding that little V stitch, and then inserting my hook through one of those loops there. That. So now I have 3 on my hook, and then I'm going to double crochet like normal. So once I've done that, I'm going to pull through a loop, yarn over, insert my hook into the first double crochet here, and then do another 6 double crochets. And then for my final double crochet, again, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook under these 2 loops here, and then anchor my stitch by inserting my hook into one of these stitches in that little V there. Like that, and then double crocheting like normal. So again, to anchor my stitch, I'm going to insert my hook under these 2 loops, and then find that little V stitch there, and then insert my hook through one of those. For the sleeve, I actually did 44 rows, and I will put the dimensions for all of my pieces on the screen somewhere, just so you know how big my pieces are if you do want to copy what I do exactly. So I'm going to finish doing the second sleeve, and then I will show you how to sew it all together. Okay, so once you finish crocheting all the pieces, now it's time to sew it together. So the first thing to do is kind of just mark out where you want your neckline to be. So I want mine to be a bit tighter on my neck, so I'm just going to place some stitch markers like here, I think, and then I'm going to stitch mark my 2 pieces together just to try it on to see whether it's the right size or not. So I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I grabbed some stitch markers and I just put them on my pieces, just kind of attaching them with the stitch markers so that I can try them on. So if I were to put it over my head, I can see whether this is the right size that I want it. So I think for me this is good. Obviously you can make yours however big you want, but I think I'm just going to stick with this. So I will show you how to stitch all the pieces together now. Okay, so I have my 2 pieces here and I've just attached them with some stitch markers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach these 2 pieces by single crocheting along here. If you are only stitching up until like this first block section, then you can just do a mattress stitch along these 2 pieces. But since I'm going to be attaching these distress sections together, I'm going to do a single crochet. So first I'm just going to remove this stitch marker, and I'm going to use the tail that I left to single crochet these 2 pieces together. You can use a new piece of yarn if you didn't leave a long enough tail. I just like to do this because it's one less end to weave in. So I'm going to insert my hook through that first chain 2 there. And that first chain 2 there, I've inserted my hook, and then I'm going to insert my hook through the first double crochet in the other piece. And then I'm going to pull through both of these stitches. So now I have a loop on my hook. I'm going to go into the second double crochet on both sides, and then just single crochet like normal. For this, I'm using a 4mm hook, even though I crocheted this piece with a 5mm hook, just because I want these stitches to be a bit tighter so there's no gaps. And then once I get to that really funky double crochet, I'm going to anchor my stitch with by putting my hook through one of these V-stitches. Like that. And then for this distressed section, I'm going to insert my hook through both of these loops here. So this one on this side and then on the other side. And I'm just going to put 6 single crochets into this section here because I've been doing 6 double crochets for my whole pattern. If you've been doing a different number, you can do that number, or if you've been doing like a random pattern of distress, you can just kind of put however many single crochets fits or like looks normal. It doesn't really matter because this is going to be on the inside of the top anyways. So I'm just going to put 6 single crochets in mine. That, and then once I've done that, I'm just going to go on to the next section here. So again, I'm inserting my hook through that little V stitch there to anchor my single crochet, and then through the other side. Like that, and I'm just going to single crochet until I've reached my stitch marker. So once I've finished stitching that, I'm just going to tie it off. And I'm going to cut this and repeat the same thing on the other side. Okay, so I'm done attaching the front and back pieces together, and now it's time to add the sleeves. And in my opinion, this is the most tedious part of this whole project, so I will show you how I did it. But to start, I'm going to attach the sleeve to the side of the project, so make sure that the inside of the top is facing you. So where you just did your single crochets, you want that to be facing you because this is going to be the inside of the top. So I'm going to use the yarn that I left attached to the sleeve. So I left a really long strand, and I'm going to use this to sew it together. Okay, so I've just thread my yarn through my needle, and now I'm just going to do a simple like stitch. I don't know what it's called. So I'm going to stitch these two pieces together. So you want to make sure that the middle of your sleeve is in line with the seam. So this is the middle of my piece here. So I'm just going to line that up with the seam, and if you want, you can attach it with some stitch markers, which I do recommend, just to make sure that you don't accidentally pull the sleeve as you sew it, so it stays in the right place. And then once you've attached your stitch marker there, I also recommend just counting how many rows down your sleeve comes to, so you can stitch it the same on the other side. So I will show you what I mean. So line up your two pieces, and then kind of just lay out your sleeve flat, and then count how many rows there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my sleeve comes down to the 10th row here. So I'm just going to count 10 rows on this side and then use a stitch marker to attach it, just to make sure that my sleeve is in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to attach my sleeve there. Like that, and that just makes sure that our sleeve will be in the middle when we're finished sewing, because I've had so many projects where I've started sewing it and I didn't stitch mark it, and then by the time I finished sewing, my piece was like here and here. So yeah, just make sure that you keep this in the middle. Okay, so to stitch my pieces together, as I said, I'm just going to do a simple stitch. I don't know if that's the name for it, but I'm just going to go through with my needle. That, and then I'm going to go in through the sleeve again. So I'm going to go through this first double crochet here, and then just into the side of the front piece. Like that, and then I'm going to go in through the sleeve, and then through the side of the front piece. And now for this double crochet here, I'm going to make sure that I go under the loops. And then when stitching this distress section together, I'm just going to go under these two loops here and then through the side of the top. Once I've gone through there enough times, I'm just going to go back through the double crochets in the blocked sections. Then once I reach the end here, I'm just going to tie it off with a knot. Just like that, and then I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side. So before I start stitching this piece together, I'm just going to line it up with the other sleeve to make sure that they're in line. So I'm going to count 10 stitches down, add a stitch mark in the middle, and then start at the bottom here. So I'm going to add my stitch markers and then do the exact same stitch on the other side, going in through the sleeve and then out through the body piece, and then in through the sleeve, out through the body, all the way till the end here. So I finished stitching both of my sleeves to the body of the top, and now we're going to finish off the top by sewing down the side and down the sleeve. So first I'm going to fold it in half, and then just make sure that the side lines up and the sleeve lines up. And we're going to start at the bottom here and then make our way up to the armpit and then down the sleeve. So I'm just going to thread my needle with a new piece of yarn still attached to a ball of yarn, because this kind of requires a lot of yarn, and so it's kind of difficult to estimate how much you'll need. So I've just got this attached to a new ball of yarn. And then I'm going to start at the bottom here. So I'm going to insert my hook through the very bottom of the stitch here, so almost like at the bottom of the double crochets. And then the same on the other side. And then I'm going to go through the same side and then through the other side. Like that. And then that's the first double crochet there. And you kind of want to go in through each double crochet, so I'll show you what I mean. So now that I've done that first double crochet, this is the second double crochet, second row. I'm going to insert my hook through the bottom there, and then through the bottom of the next double crochet in the other side. Like that. And once I've gone through the bottom of that double crochet, I'm now going to go through the top of that same row. So as you can see here, this is the row of the double crochet. I've come through the bottom. Now I'm going to go in through the top here. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to go through the top of the double crochet around here. Like that. And so you're just going to go through each double crochet twice basically. So in through the bottom, then in through the bottom of the third row, and then out through the top of the double crochet. And as you go, you'll want to just pull on these stitches, just to pull them out a bit so they kind of look like this distress section here. And this is why I recommend you thread your yarn or your needle with a new ball of yarn, just because there's not really any way to measure out the correct amount because you really need a lot of yarn for this. So I'm going to keep going. Now I'm onto the 4th row, so I'm going to go in my 4th row here at the bottom of the stitch, and then through the bottom of the 4th row on the other side. And then I'm going to go through the top of that 4th row, and then through the top on the other side. And so you'll just want to repeat this kind of pattern of stitching all the way down the side of the top. And you want to make sure that you actually go through the stitch instead of just wrapping around it like this, because then otherwise it can kind of pull your stitches apart and it will leave gaps in the side of your top. And again, I'm not pulling my stitches all the way through, just so that there's some yarn left to leave a gap here. And so when I get to the end of this yarn, which I probably will, I'll come to the bottom again and then pull out the yarn so that there's enough for me to keep going. So I'm going to keep going in this pattern up until I reach the armpit, and then I will show you kind of how to turn to the other side, but it is kind of the same. You just want to keep going through each row of double crochet. Okay, so I'm almost up to the armpit now, and I'm kind of running out of yarn here. So as I mentioned before, what I would do, just in case this also happens to you, is that I would start at the bottom, and this is normally easier if you have like a crochet hook. So you can grab a crochet hook and you can just kind of pull out the stitches a little bit. So pull them out like this, and then pull out each one until you reach where you're at, and then you can pull this out so you have more thread. Okay, so now I'm nearly at the armpit and I have 2 rows left. So I'm just going to stitch up until I get to here. Then once I go through the top of the last row, it's very simple. You basically just start the process again, but with the rows on the sleeve. So this is the bottom of the first row of the sleeve, so I'm going to go through the bottom there, and then I'm going to go through the bottom on the other side. That, and then through the top, and that's the first row done. Then I'm going to go into the second row. And then just keep repeating this process all the way down the side of the sleeve. And again, I've run out of yarn, so I'm going to have to pull yarn all the way from the bottom to the top here. Okay, so I finally reached the end of my sleeve here, and as you can see, my stitching got a bit tight as I went on just because I was running out of yarn. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this whole section here and just pull out the strands to make sure that it's all the same thickness. So obviously start at the bottom because this is where the yarn's coming from, and then pull them out as you go down and make sure that they're pretty much the same thickness as here. So I'm going to grab my hook, and I'm just going to pull out a lot of yarn at first because it's easier to pull out a lot and go through the whole thing, and then you can also tighten it on this side as well. Okay, so I'm finally done with evening out these stitches here. So this is the section that I just sewed. And as you can see, it looks really similar to these sections here, so if you do want to do this, I highly recommend. It makes the top look really good. It's just a pain in the ass to do, but never mind. So once I'm done with that, I'm just going to cut this bit off, tie a knot, and then weave in the ends, and then I will do the same thing to the other side. So I finished sewing up both sides of my top, and as you can see, it does look like I have finished doing that distress pattern all the way around the top. So that is pretty much the tutorial done. I hope you could understand, hope you could follow along. If you do have any questions, then please comment and I will try to answer everyone. And as usual, there will be the written pattern in the description somewhere. I also wanted to thank everybody for 30,000 subscribers. I want to thank everyone for subscribing and still being subscribed even though I haven't posted for like 2 months. I am so sorry. I'm trying to be better and I will try to post more regularly now that I'm back at home. So yeah, please comment what you would like to see next and I will try to get that out. Summer crochet ideas are welcomed. But yeah, if you do make this, please tag me. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what everyone makes, and thanks for watching.